game-changing discussions on the big ideas that shape our thinking. This is One2One.
My guest today is a Nigerian chess champion and social entrepreneur and founder of Chess in Slums Africa. Raised in the slums of Lagos, he turned his passion for chess into a mission to empower underprivileged children through education and mentorship. His initiative has helped thousands of children gain literacy, school access, and national recognition through chess. In 2024, he set a Guinness World Record for the longest chess marathon in Times Square, New York. Tunde Onakoya, welcome to One2One.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's an honor to be here.
Thank you. The pleasure is mine. So let's dive straight in. You are Tunde Onakoya, chess master, visionary founder of Chess in Slums Africa. Your work has gained global recognition for combining cognitive training, mentorship, and literacy to literally create pathways to bring kids out of poverty. In 2024, as the world was watching, you set a Guinness World Record for the longest chess marathon, playing non-stop for 60 hours, was it not?
It was.
In Times Square, New York, no less. You did it to raise funds and awareness for children's education. So I'd like to begin by framing the context in which we'll be having this conversation, because it's quite obvious to me. It's not really about chess, really. It's about children, education, and empowerment. So, according to UNICEF, Nigeria is the country with the highest number of out-of-school children globally.
True.
That figure is 18.3 million kids as of May 2024 out of school. If you believe UNESCO, that estimate is closer to about 20 million as of 2022. 1 in 5, that's 20% of the world's out-of-school children, are in Nigeria. It's a greater proportion, though, in the rural and deprived communities. So let's begin with your story. Having laid that foundation and that context, who is Tunde Onakoya? What is Chess in Slums Africa? And I'm curious, why Times Square in particular?
Okay, these are three very interesting questions. There are three questions that tell, different things about me, but still comes to a single convergence of why I am the way that I am. Like Nigerians would ask, why are you like this? And I guess the first question, which Tunde Onakoya? Tunde is a dreamer, and it's how I've always introduced myself, that I'm a dreamer, because there's an idea of the world in my head that I'm trying to will into existence. And it's a journey I've been in for the last 10 years. 10 years ago, I became a bit more aware of something, just a bit more intensely conscious of it. And it's the inequality in our society. It didn't make sense to me that some people could wear like $5 million wristwatches, and there were other people that couldn't afford $2 daily to feed. And I thought to myself that how did we design a society like this, and how did we design a society of financial systems where people are so far removed from opportunity, they're so far removed from just basic decency. And I thought about what I could do, and I had to look at my own hands and what I had in it, and it was just chess. But that journey started like when I was 10 years old as a child. We grew up in Ikorodu in Lagos, Nigeria. The first of two, so the first child of my family. And, we grew up in a very humble place. My parents didn't have a lot, but they wanted us to get an education. So they tried everything. They made a lot of painful sacrifices to ensure that happened. But after my primary school education, there was just no way to keep supporting that. So I had to drop out of school for a number of years. And it was in that time that I saw a chessboard for the first time. I would always go to this barbershop, and I saw a chessboard there, and I asked him, well, what is this? And he told me to just watch. And by watching, I was able to just pick up the names of the pieces and start to understand the basic rules of it. But what I didn't know then was that it was going to be the very single moments that would completely change the trajectory of my life. And, eventually I was able to get back to school. I attended Untapped College, which had like a very comprehensive chess program. Then I started representing my school at tournaments. And, the summary is chess helped me understand that there was a place in the world for me. I went on to go to scholarship. I got a partial scholarship to go to college. And I just came out of it as an individual with an educated mind. And the moment I had that, I immediately, I was imbued with a sense of duty to think about what I could do for other children like me that grew up in the same situation. So that is what Tunde Onakoya is, and that is the journey has been on. And Chess in Slums is an expression of that. So Chess in Slums is basically just a non-profit that uses the game of chess as a tool to foster the social and intellectual development of children in impoverished communities. So we spent the last 7 to 8 years working with children from some of the worst slums across Africa. A lot of them have gotten both local and international scholarships. Some of them have been abroad, representing a tournament, scholarships, one major tournament as well. I've had a lot of life-changing opportunities. We've told a lot of inspiring stories that the world now pays attention to. So it's really just shifting the world's perception of the Nigerian child in poverty to think about the potential that they have, because I believe very strongly that while talent is universal, opportunity isn't. So Chess in Slums is an idea, a revolutionary idea that is bridging that gap for the children that the world has forgotten. And the final question, why Times Square? It was my first time in America last year. And I was walking through Times Square and all of the lights, and it felt like the center of the world. It felt like where great things happen. And I thought maybe if I could make my mark here, maybe the world would pay attention to what I have to say. Hence the world record. And now we're here today.
I love New York as well, by the way, at Times Square.
The city of dreams. Eh?
Absolutely. It reminds me of Lagos, actually.
Yes. Lagos and absolute steroids.
Yeah, absolutely. So you discovered the game of chess as a youth in a barbershop. That was located, it's fair to say, not exactly in Banana Island, was it? Don't choke on your water.
Yeah, downtown Ikorodu.
Absolutely. And you've spoken already passionately about transforming the lives of children in less privileged communities. And that's where you discovered the game of chess. But tell me, what do you think that says about the latent potential of individuals and communities in less privileged parts of the country to outperform in endeavors that run totally against the stereotypes? It's not boxing, it's not, it's not table tennis, it's not even basketball, it's chess. What does that say about the potential that resides in communities like that? And more to the point, if that is the case and you've proven it, how do we as a country go about systematically harnessing the potential that would otherwise have been lost, but for people like you making it obvious and apparent to the world?
This is a very important question, because it is a question that we, the elites, should continue to ask ourselves. And I think the greatest crime of the elites, or even but the political elites, yes, but even we with any level of privilege, right? We should ask ourselves that, what are we missing? Like, what is the true blessing of our country? Do we still continue to delude ourselves into thinking, oh, we have oil, we have the mineral resource? Like, how are we missing out on what is the greatest, most valuable thing about this country? It's people. The sheer human capital that is just left untapped, unserved. To me, it is an indictment on our society that we have this great wealth that we see every day, right? But then we're mostly indifferent towards it, right? Not because we don't know enough, but because we don't feel the pain of the common man. We've done everything to shield ourselves from it, to build a bubble for ourselves, to enable ourselves to define our own success as an individual one. And it is such a selfish thing that has happened and has completely destroyed the fabric of our society. That people have defined success through a very singular lens of individual achievement. But the only success that will move the needle for all of us is a shared one, it's a communal one. Right? And which is why, one of the really good examples that I like to give. So I was watching this interview, that Steve Jobs, gave recently. No, Steve Jobs rather, Tim Cook rather, the CEO of Apple. And he was talking about China and how, everyone keeps asking that, why does Apple keep going back to China to make these phones? And he said something. He said, see, there's a specific kind of tool and engineering that is needed to build the iPhone. Like in the US, you can maybe fill a room like this with engineers who have that capacity, that specific competence. But if you go to China, you can fill multiple stadiums with engineers that have that tooling engineering competence, right? So they're not going to China because labor is cheap there. That is not true anymore, at least for the last 20 years. They're going to China because at the scale at which they need to produce their product, it is the only place with the most competence in the world for it. Now, what does that tell you? What has China really done? China has developed their education at vocational level. So a lot of their children, the way they think about their education is they're really preparing them to serve the world in specific capacities. So which is why everyone goes to China for manufacturing, because it's been a lot of deliberate effort of enhancing their human capital, right? And making sure that plugs directly into global market, into the global economy. So which is how China has created prosperity for itself. Then I'll say another thing. There's this company called Nvidia. It is currently the most valuable company in the world with a market capitalization of $4 trillion. The entire continent of Africa, GDP is $3.2 trillion. Like the entire economic activity on a continent of 1 billion people is less valuable than just a single tech company. Yeah. Right. And this is the real challenge for all of us, right? To really understand that our greatest wealth is not in the ground. It is in the mind. It is the potential that is just there untapped. For these children that we see in the streets that have no education, that we have to, it's a national emergency that we start to invest primarily in our knowledge economy, right? To not just think about business infrastructure, but to build institutions, that will ensure that our people are educated and they're competent, and that they're given the very basic foundation for their ideas, for their education to become useful and meaningful for the development of our society. And I like to think Chess and Slums is just a simple expression of that, right? That, potential, yes, Nigeria has a lot of it, but potential means absolutely nothing if it's not realized. And an even greater tragedy is, as much as we like to brag about the numbers, is if Nigeria is going to have the youngest youth population in the world in the next 50 years, and this population cannot read or write or cannot use any technology, that it will become a liability to that future. Absolutely. So they cannot participate, no purchasing power, then, crime, everything else is going to soar. And so it is not something to be even proud of yet. It's something to even be terrified by, because we're not making any plans to empower them. So Chess and Slums is that single idea that goes to show that our greatest wealth, like I said, is in the mind. And when you are able to sort of distill that and bring it down to the community level for these children to participate in, then you've given them an entry point into becoming thinkers. And that is what we need to do. We need to raise a new generation of thinkers. And when you do that from some of the slums, it imbues them with one thing, with a sense of duty, because I believe that the people that must save us won't come from, they must emerge from the same communities they must serve. The only reason why Tunde Onakoya is able to do what he does now is because I also came from the slums. And it doesn't matter what success I have, I would always have a sense of duty back to that place. And we need to do that at scale for as many children as possible. To think about education and entry points. Chess is just one expression of it, like I said. But if we're not investing massively and thoroughly into our knowledge economy, then all of the other things that we're chasing wouldn't matter, right? Because at the end of the day, if this 100 million people are excluded, then what is Nigeria without that potential that is just wasting away, right? So we're leading the charge, within our own capacity. But then chess is just the means to that end. It's not the end in itself. It's to really unlock this new generation of young people from some of the most underserved communities, to help them have their own identities, to help them know that their minds are their greatest assets. And when we're able to harness that and give them the education that they need, then they can contribute meaningfully to the world. And this should be a responsibility for all of us.
Absolutely. So I'd like to talk a little bit more in that case about chess and slums in particular. That wonderful initiative that you birthed. And I do have to say, you birthed years before Times Square. It didn't start after that. You founded Chess and Slums Africa in Ikorodu in 2018.
Yes.
The vision, as we know it, is to build intellectual capacity and create opportunities for children in slums through chess, literacy, and mentorship.
Yeah.
Your model is quite structured. You have these intensive 2-week boot camps. I'm assuming you still have them.
Yeah.
Literacy programs alongside chess coaching. Scholarships, school reintegration, crucial. We've talked about the number of children out of school already. And talent exposure. You expose these children equipped and ready to go into the world.
Yes, absolutely.
And you reached thousands
Yeah.
of children impacted across Nigeria and counting. And you are planning, I'm sure, of course, you've already expanded into other African countries.
Yes.
And hopefully we can talk a bit more about that later. But I'd like you to go back and talk to me about the nitty-gritty of how Chess and Slums began. Was it a structured plan? Did you just happen upon it? Or was it just a spontaneous act of service?
Yes, I mean, you've said a lot of these things now, and in hindsight, now I have the benefit of hindsight now, and a lot of things are clearer now. But then at the very beginning, you can imagine how very confused I was, and even more confusing for other people. When you tell people that, you want to take chess to the slums, and they look at you, and the first question they ask you is, how would chess put food on the table? But then, the one thing I had that was very clear to me was I had a lot of faith in a very simple idea, a very simple concept that chess can be used to create an intellectual identity for a child. And I talk about identity because, there's what the science of it says, right? And the science explains a lot of the cognitive benefits and how it instills critical thinking, creativity, and all of these things, which is true. It grows dendrites on both sides of the brain. Now, that is the science of it. And, to be very honest, that the real impact of chess is in that synapses. And it is even more consequential for children, in their development age, right? So chess helps instill those skills, which are the skills that would be relevant primarily for the future of work. When everything else fades away, with AI completely changing everything, a person's ability to think critically and to have high agency will become the most valuable skill in the world. And chess is one of the most practical ways to actually help them get there. So that is what the science says. But for me, it was more of the context of chess as such a disruptive tool to the cycle of poverty. Because it made sense to me, and using myself as an example, a lot of the other kids who grew up in the community, in the slums, I went back there recently in January, and most of them are still there, and that is the tragedy of poverty, that it robs you completely of your own identity. A child is born into a situation where they become victims of their parents' poverty. And when that happens, they miss out on a lot of things, even the right nutrition for their brains to develop, the right education, all of it. And they end up becoming adults, and by the time they have their own full agency, they cannot participate in any way in the world, right? And that is what makes the cycle of poverty so vicious, right? And they have their own kids too, and the cycle goes on and endlessly. But I was lucky because I found chess. Chess took me out of my community for the first time. It helped me use a computer for the first time. It helped me meet people. It helped me understand my own mind a bit better. So I was lucky. And that was all I ran with. I felt if I could teach these children that the world completely neglects, don't even think have any sort of intelligence whatsoever, I could teach them to be masters of chess and show great aptitude and competence for it, then maybe the world will pay attention to them a little more. And the stereotype now begins to change, right? Because when you imagine, even the way the Western media portrays, the Nigerian child in poverty, you see, with kwashiorkor, with fly on their nose, but you begin to challenge the perception that they can also apply themselves intellectually. That changes something. That helps you to respect them. And when you do that, you begin to think beyond what the circumstances, but then you begin to really focus on what the child has the ability to do. So for me, it was like chess gives them a way to define their own identities through ability. So they get to show that I can do this intellectual endeavor and I can do it better than most people in the world. Right? So if you give me tech, I'll do it as well. If you give me education, I'll do it as well. So what really is the gap? It's opportunity, simple. Right? So that was how the idea was formed in my head 8 years ago. And that was all I needed. And I took a few chess sports and I went to start teaching the kids. And of course, it has blossomed into a much more structured program where we have, the chess education program, where we're using chess as a tool, to help teach critical thinking and also competition level chess, And we also have a mentorship program where we bring in people from all over the world that are career professionals that maybe want to learn chess, then we pair them up with the kids. So there's an exchange of value there. And we have a scholarship program as well because of the kind of communities that we work with. And a lot of the kids are out of school. So we're great. The 2-week program is just like a makeshift pilot phase that we go into the community. We do a vulnerability assessment. We select the children we want to work with. Then we now partner with local schools, put them on scholarship, then set up a permanent training center. So recently we set up an innovation hub, a chess hub with Lufthansa Airlines in Yaba, very close to the Makoko community. And this hub serves, 1,000 children monthly, where we teach them, from robotics to STEM, to chess, to math, to design. So it's really, like I said earlier, chess is a very simple entry point because it doesn't require a lot of infrastructure, but it is not the end in itself. There will be some kids that will be exceptionally talented, right? But we also care about the holistic development, right? Education being very critical to that, right? And also making sure that they have the capacity to think. It is really a lot of our curriculum development is raising a new generation of children from the slums to become better thinkers, the kind of thinkers that will challenge the status quo and become problem solvers for the future that we want to see in our country. Right, so that is how we operate, and we've scaled to about 20 African countries now that we're working in. So we have centers and hubs, situated, across continent like this. Then we also have scholarship programs where people can come adopt a child and sponsor them through the year. So, and yes, we're still evolving, but at the end of the day, like I said, the core mission of Chess and Slums is to give this gift of chess to 1 million children across Africa. Because I believe if we can do this, then we can hit critical mass and truly, truly raise a new generation of thinkers that will push Nigeria's prosperity a bit forward.
Yeah, amazing. And ironically, it occurs to me that many of the things that you're doing with these kids in the slums, equipping them and teaching them critical thinking out of the box, it occurs to me that many of these things actually have been pressed out of conventional education in this country today, and it's absolutely affecting the workforce. So you're actually positioning these kids 10, 20 years down the line at an advantage. This can be a tough sell, particularly in communities like attempting to serve. How did you, right at the start, it's a lot easier now, I'm sure, convince others, and I'm talking about sponsors, families, even the children themselves, their parents, their communities. How did you convince them that this is worth, engaging with?
It was hard. Oh, Jesus Christ. I mean, it's a lot easier now because, now I'm quite famous, and we just created a new problem because now I cannot just go to the communities that I used to go to anymore because now most people know me, and it has sort of affected the dynamics of how I can be a part of the project, at the very ground level. we recently got back from New York with 5 of the kids from our program. One of the girls, I met her in an IDP camp somewhere in Yola in Adamawa State. And going from that to, speaking at the United Nations, getting a silver medal at the tournament in Atlanta, Georgia was just a dream come true. And now all the other children back home, they want to be like her. Right? So now it's easy to go back and say, we want to do this, and everyone wants to be a part of it. But at the beginning, it was hard, mostly because most of these communities are used to just being given handouts. So if you're not coming there to share money or food, they don't pay attention to you. And a lot of the kids too that I wanted to work with, some of them had to like hawk food on the street or do menial jobs to support their parents. So which is even the reason why their parents sometimes take them out of school, because they don't understand the value of education. What they understand is they need to survive. So there's no long-term thinking into letting the child go to school. They don't even have the money for that. So one of the first things we had to do was to engage the community leaders first, right? And to not just think we can come and impress our bright ideas, but to really involve the community leaders. And, we've done a lot of that. In fact, one of our hardest projects was when we went to Oshodi on that bridge. We had to involve the area boys that we knew were very violent.
Of course.
And guess what? They became a part of the project as well and helped us save those children. So involving the community leaders, of course, sometimes provide very simple incentive, like, okay, after every chest training, we'll give you food. For some of the kids, it might be the only meal they'll get to eat that day. So there was that as well. Then, also after some time, that is the magic of chess, is you just need like 1 or 2 lessons and the children become captivated themselves.
They're hooked.
Yes, because that is it. Chess is like a learning journey of self-discovery. Like I cannot teach you what to think in chess. I can only teach you how to think for yourself. And they take the very basic knowledge of the rules and they begin to explore that themselves. So it's the beauty of a child's mind that they're very curious. So give them a tool like chess. It gives them an endless board to explore that curiosity. So when the child's interest is locked in, it also becomes easier to get that commitment and the dedication to it. So we've had to do many things, but involving the community leaders, involving their parents and trying to make them understand, and also providing incentives like sometimes food after training, in a lot of cases to like educational scholarship. So when the kids know that, being a part of this chess team will help me go to school, then it just marries what we've sort of like planted in their heart. Then through chess, at that community training level, they start to develop this love for learning. Then, when that happens, it becomes a lot easier. It's still hard in a lot of cases, but it has gotten a lot easier now. To say in my own case, like the world record wasn't to bring personal glory. I was like, okay, we need money we want to set up this hub, we want to, expand our programs to other countries in Africa. Let me push my own personal limits. Let me do something that I would have never thought, that I had the courage to do, to bring resource, and attention to that. And in doing so, it brought me a lot of like success as well. And that is how the world works.